Today we are going to put one of our classmates in a volleyball court using masking techniques. And this is probably not the most beautiful volleyball court we could have chosen, but we chose it for a reason, and that's because it has enough resolution or enough pixels in it to match the photographs that we've already taken. So what I'm going to do here is go to image size, and image size, this is 4,000 by 3,000 pixels, which is a decent size if you're going to use an appropriated image, which you can for this project. You're allowed to use appropriated imagery as long as you credit the source. Because most of your images are going to be the ones we took yesterday. So here's Ryan. And if we go mouse back and forward through these images, we want to evaluate the images for, and I'm going to make them bigger so we can look at them on the screen. We want to evaluate them for clarity, sharpness, facial expression, like I think that one has a better facial expression. And I'm going to zoom in on this one. Yeah, okay, so we have good sharpness. So this will be one of the photographs that we choose. So all I'm going to do is take it and drag it to the Photoshop icon. And that's one. And then we're going to go back to our gallery. And here's him as the coach. So in this one, we took the green screen and we got smart and we put the green screen behind his feet. So we'll use that one. He's missing a little tiny bit of his foot. So we're either going to clone stamp that in, or he's going to be slightly footless. But no, this won't be bad to add. That'll be easy. Okay, so back to the gallery. Let's pick one or two more. So we have Ryan. Are you jumping here? Diving. Those don't look all that realistic. Now yesterday I went to the volleyball game, the women's volleyball, and those people were amazing. This one looks good. What do you think of this one, Ryan? Okay. All right, so we'll take this one, drag it right to the Photoshop icon, and then we need one more. I guess we do need one of you reaching. So we'll do the best we can with this. This one is a little bit unsharp. Can you guys see that? But we will do our best with that one. This one, let's see if this one's a little sharper. That one's sharper. We'll use that one. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we're going to evaluate, we need to evaluate the lighting direction of our image, which is pretty side lit. And then we purposely lit Ryan from the top, and we lit him evenly with no shadows so he would fit into anything. So let's go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do with any digital image is evaluate the image itself. So in this case, we have some decent sharpness. His face is a little soft. We were using auto rather than manual focus. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to apply a filter. So I'm going to do filter sharpen, and there are two sharpen filters. Don't use any other filters but these, except possibly shake reduction. I'm going to use smart sharpen. So smart sharpen allows me, that's too much sharpening by the way. Smart sharpen allows me to remove lens blur, motion blur, or Gaussian blur. So we probably have a little motion blur, say when we were taking the photograph. So I'm going to push the radius down. I'm going to push the amount down. And so here's our before, and here's our after. And so there's our before, there's our after. Not a lot going on, so I'm going to push the amount up a little bit more. Before, after, radius. Radius is what really gives us a lot. Do you see how much sharper his eyes got there? Now that's a little bit much, don't you see? Don't you think? Because we're starting to get some artifacts in his hair, but that's about right. So here's before, and there's after. What do you think? Is it too much? Is it too sharpened, or is it okay? Okay, there's before, and there's after. I think, okay, well, Joey says it might be better before. I think we just have too much sharpening because the before image is too unsharp. I want to be able to see see his eyelashes. That's a little bit sharper. So it's all a matter of pushing up the radius, which is the number of pixels it samples at one time, and balancing that with the amount of sharpness. So here's before. I think this is a pretty good compromise. That's after. So I have the white of his eye here. I have his eyelashes, whereas in the before I don't. That's all blurry. We need his eyes to be sharp. If his eyes are sharp, it's actually, that's one of the rules of portrait photography, actually. If you get the eyes sharp, then people will perceive the rest of the images as sharp. Okay, so we're smart. We got out our green screen and we photographed Ryan against a green background, which will make him very easy to drop out. Okay, so I'm going to start by dropping Ryan out of the background, and we're going to do that using all of the hair. We're going to get every detail here. This might be a little bit of work because it's a little bit unsharp, but we're going to do our best anyway. Okay, there are a lot of different ways to select things in Photoshop. So the first way to select things is using the time-honored marquee and lasso tools, which give you what are called, anybody know what these are called? For ages and ages, they've been called marching ants. Those are marching ants. So now you know. So we can select him with the lasso tool. You can get pretty good with the lasso tool. I can select part of him. If I want to add to that, I can hold down the Shift key. It's Shift adds, Option subtracts. But you can see that's going to take us a long time. I can also select using one of these two tools, Quick Select or the Magic Wand. So the Magic Wand is going to select by color. So if I click on his orange t-shirt, I can grab more or less of it. Tolerance here is how many adjacent colors it grabs. So if I push the tolerance up to 50, and I hit add, and I continually add to that, I'm eventually going to get a reasonable, but this is still not a very good selection. Okay, it doesn't look very good. It has a lot of problems. Okay, so a while ago, Adobe invented this awesome thing called the Quick Selection tool. And the Quick Selection tool tries to select objects in context. So watch what happens here. All I'm doing is clicking on Ryan's hair. It's selected his hair. It's selected his whole head, whole shirt. See that? His shorts, his arm, rest of his arm. And now if I hold down the Option key, my plus turns into a minus and I can get rid of that green in the background. Now we're going to select his leg. And I'm just clicking, I'm not clicking and dragging with the mouse. So we're going to select the white of his shoe, and I'm going to try to click, if I can make this brush bigger or smaller by using the brackets. So left bracket is smaller, right bracket is bigger. So I'm just going to try to left bracket select this. That worked out pretty well. Now I'm going to select his leg, select his sock, select his shoe, and I'm going to select the white of his shoe. So always remember Shift adds, Option subtracts. And let's evaluate this selection. And one way to evaluate it is I'm going to zoom in, and you can see that this is not perfect. It's pretty good, but it's not going to give us a perfect. It's going to give us some helmet head. Do you notice how it's ignoring his hair? It's going to give us some artifacts in his hair. So Adobe also created this really awesome thing called Select and Mask. So that is a button, and as you can see, here is a preview of what Ryan will look like if I just used this selection and cut him out. So he looks pretty good. These edges look great on his arm. We have a little bit of green. See how we have a little green on his arm? That's called spill. And we might have to take some of that out manually. But what this is mainly, this does an absolutely great job on things like hair. So watch this. So I am going to enable something called Smart Radius. And I'm going to push that radius up to 2 pixels. And there are several brushes. One is the Quick Selection Mask, the Refine Edge brush tool. So I want to refine the edges now. So I want to refine the edges of his hair. So I'm going to get picky. I'm going to use a small brush. And it's literally showing me a preview of what it's doing. So I'm starting to remove the green. Okay, I can also use the Select and Mask brush to just try to, so again, let's give this, thankfully you can undo this. Yeah, that didn't work for me at all. So I need the Refine Edge brush, and I'm going to mouse over his hair. And I'm going to ask it to smooth it a bit. So we're trying to get rid of the green and have his hair, ooh, look at that, okay. Get all of his hair. Okay, so nothing like this is going to end up perfect. I'm going to take the smooth off, and I'm going to take the, so all of this is live, meaning it can change as I go. I'm going to give it a little bit of feather, less feather, and I can shift edge by percentage. So as I shift edge in, see that? The green is starting to disappear. We can go too far there. So what do you think about that for his hair? Shifting edges by 28%. Let's see if that did anything to his face. Not really. It did a little bit. See, this is a little pixelated. So I can shift edge. Maybe I will take that a little bit less because we want everything to be sharp. Okay, so shift edge is working great for us on the hair, and it's working not so great for us on the rest of his body. All right, so I'm going to take this selection right now, and I'm going to do what's called a layer mask. So in my layers panel, so window, I'm going to go to layers. I have one layer, the background layer. So this button here will give us a layer mask, and what a layer mask does is allows us to paint out parts of the image that we don't want. So in this case, we don't want the background. So I'm going to add a mask. So it's also under here, layer and layer mask. It's actually layer mask reveal all, but the shortcut is much easier, so I'm going to use layer mask. And this shows me what we did with the quick select tool. Okay, so there are a lot of techniques and shortcuts for cutting him out. And since I am a perfectionist, well, first of all, I'm going to get rid of this green. So since I am a perfectionist, I'm going to get rid of the green very quickly. Here's our mask. If I option click on it, here's what the mask looks like. So I option click on the mask, option click on it again. So anything that's black is masked out. We can't see it. Anything that's white is the image that we have left in. So I need this to be black, don't I? right? So I'm going to use my foreground color, which is black, and I'm going to use a key command, Option Delete, to get rid of the black. Okay, now when I Option click back on Ryan, okay, lo and behold, we don't have the green anymore. So now I'm going to get super picky about edges. Okay, so one thing I said is that all the way around Ryan, we have about a pixel or two of green spill. This is known as spill. So there's a really simple way to get rid of that, and all I'm going to do is select all of Ryan. I'm going to decrease the selection by 1 pixel and get rid of that edge. It's going to go away. So to select just Ryan, I am going to use my Move tool. So remember, we have in Illustrator, we had our Select tool and our Direct Selection tool. In Photoshop, we only have one, the Move tool. But if I Command click on the transparent part of Ryan, I get those famous marching ants. Now watch this. Select, Modify, Contract. So I'm going to contract this by 2 pixels. See that? My selection is now inside the green. Okay, so I'm going to Option click. So we are going to get rid of those pixels and we are going to make them black or white? Black, because we want to mask out those parts of the image. However, we want to invert the selection first. So select the inverse. We want to select all the black. And here's our selection where we have all that stuff going on there, all those extra pixels. And we're going to fill that with white using the key command Option Delete. Okay, now, by the way, I'm hiding and showing the palettes using Tab, just like Illustrator. Now, here's Ryan. Okay, so he's 2 pixels skinnier all the way around. So let's deselect that and let's evaluate the image. So far we haven't spent a whole lot of time doing that. Let's see what he looks like. Do we need to color correct him at all? Do we have pretty natural colors? Do we have decent lighting? We took care of that in the camera stage. So one of the cardinal rules of digital composites is that I cannot take a bad picture and make it into a good picture with Photoshop. It's much better to take care of these things in the camera stage. So when I'm taking the picture. Okay, so there's Ryan. That looks pretty decent. He's kind of big for the space, right? So we did a good job masking him out. Do you see how there's still a little bit of green here? And there are other areas where we could mask him out better, right here. Okay, we're not going to be super perfectionistic because we want to create a composite quickly. But as you can see in my layers panel here, I have Ryan with his layer mask. And this layer mask will stay with us so that we can continue to refine the masking. But one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn Ryan into a smart object. So a smart object means it becomes like Illustrator. I can shrink it or I can expand it and it will not change the image quality. So that's vital, smart object. Everybody say that, smart object. Layer, smart object, convert to smart object. Now when I transform him, which is Command T, I can make him smaller, I can make him bigger, and I can do that as much as I please without affecting the quality of the image. So let's place this Ryan Should we make him smaller and in the background we could use multiples of him, like playing against himself? Okay, you know what, let's save this. Let's get smart here. Ryan.psd, and I'm going to go ahead and save it into my type and image folder. Type an image. I'm going to make a folder for multiple me. Hit create, save. Okay, so let's take a couple more Ryans and then we'll have a little bit better idea of how this works. Okay, this one is on all green screens. So this is going to be really easy for us. So I'm using the quick select tool. Want to get those heels of his shoes. Okay, so now let's evaluate that selection. Okay, how does it look so far? Pretty good? Okay, so let's make a mask. How do I make a mask? Bottom of the layers panel, and I click this little guy with a hole in it. Uh-oh, I forgot to select some areas of Ryan. So we're going to undo that, Command Z, and then we're going to go back and get all the areas of Ryan that I did not get. Okay, now let's make a mask again. There, that's much better. Okay, so the edges look pretty good, actually. Oh, I do, you're right. You're right. Okay, so let's zoom in on this. Let's use the quick select tool. Let's make it smaller. I'm using what key to do that? Brackets, very good. And I'm just going to click once. Then I'm going to make it even smaller, click a second time, and that's pretty good. Now, I want to, what am I doing to get to the mask itself? Option clicking on it. I'm option clicking on it. So I want that to go away. So I'm going to fill it with black using the key command. Option delete. But that's close, Joey. Command delete fills with the background color. Option delete fills with the foreground color. So now this looks a little funky. Honestly, this looks a little funky. So I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to refine this mask manually. So this is a 70 pixel brush and it has a hardness of 91%. And I'm going to just make it smaller. And I'm going to make it smaller yet. And I'm going to get rid of all this green. So sometimes, you know, there's no like hard and fast rules for doing stuff in Photoshop. Sometimes it's what works for that image at that moment. Make it smaller. I'm super, super perfectionistic about masking. Everything has to be masked perfectly or I go nuts. All right, so now let's look at, ooh, we have some green spill here. So now how did we get rid of the green spill last time? By 1 pixel. Yeah. I think I did 2 pixels, you're right. So where do I go? Select. Okay, actually I need to be back on him. Okay, so select and I need, now what? Oh, well, do I have a selection going? Okay, so I need to select just the transparent area around Ryan, which is, I'm going to command select on it. I'm going to command select it. So that gives me the marching ants. Actually, that's not giving me the marching ants at all. There we go. Oh, wow, I still neglected a huge part of him. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that. So one easy way, so I thought I had that selected, but I didn't. But that's not a big deal because if I'm clicking on the mask If I paint with white, I'm painting the image out. If I paint with black, if I paint with white, I'm painting the image back in. If I paint with black, I am masking the image out. So watch what happens when I take a brush and I paint with white. There we go. Okay, so let's do that selection thing again, shall we? So I'm going to option click. That looks pretty good, decent cutout, nice cutout of him. And we're going to make that selection a little bit smaller. So I command click to get the marching ants. There they are. And now I'm going to do what? Select, modify, very good. Contract. Select, modify, contract. And we decided that 2 pixels was good. Okay, so now let's look at what we did. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now how do we fill that? So we have Ryan, but we want the opposite of Ryan to be filled with black, right? So we're going to select inverse, very good. And then we're going to use the key command option Joey, what's the key command to fill with the background color? Command delete. That's right. And the key command to fill with the foreground color is option delete. Okay, so now when we look at, doesn't look like a whole lot happened, but we lost all of the green, or most of the green, that was around his body. Okay, no more green hair, it's gone. Cool? All right, so let's take this version of Ryan and let's put him into our background. Okay, so now we have to turn him into a what? Smart object. And so that is layer, and then what? Smart object, convert to smart object. Okay, so now we can size him any way we want, which is Command T for transform. Command T in Illustrator gives you what? Type, very good. In Photoshop, it gives you transform. So we're going to want to keep him, so maybe we want to have him more forward in space in this one. I can also control click and I can flip him. So for example, I could flip him horizontally or flip him vertically. I could have him hanging from the sky. I could have Ryan's falling from the sky, but I'm going to flip him, so I could do that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to flip him horizontally so that he looks like he's looking at himself. But what does that do to my image here? Greenville Panthers. One really good lesson of photographing for multiple me is don't wear anything with letters on it. So I can't use this image unless I want to Photoshop out all of the orange. I can't use this image flipped because Greenville Panthers will be read the wrong way. However, we can decide where he's going to be placed. So should we place the coach in the foreground? I'd really like the coach here looking at Ryan. But let's place the coach. We can always, remember, we can always make a decision about this later. All right, so one more image of Ryan. Let's do this one because it's different. And this one's going to present a little bit of more of a challenge for us because it's unsharp. So what's first? Sharpen it. So let's go filter. Let's go for Smart Sharpen. Notice that's first in the list. So we are actually applying the settings that we used for the previous image. So it's still a little unsharp. You actually can, it's allowed to sharpen an image more than once in Photoshop, but we're starting to get some artifacting here and I don't want to do it. So instead we are going to mask out the green using, what's that tool called? Quick Select. All right, so we're going to grab his arms, his head, ears, shirt, and I'm going to zoom in here because this is getting a little bit confusing to look at. I'm going to make the brush bigger. I want his shirt. I want his shorts. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Damien. Okay. Yeah, his hands are going to present a little bit of a challenge for me because they're against a white background. Where did I not get the white of his shirt? There. Okay. All right, the hands are going to be the hard part. Actually, Photoshop's doing a pretty decent job.
It's just enough dark contrast.
Yeah, we got lucky. Okay, and now I'm going to make that brush really small, and I'm going to get individual fingers. Okay, now we're going to make a what? I did? Yeah, you're right. Okay, now what? I'm going to make a mask. Woohoo! Okay, so now, like I said, the hands are going to present us a little bit of a problem. See that? So we're going to have to go in and do a little bit of individual work on this. And so I'm going to use a brush tool. So brush is B on the keyboard, or it's right here. And how do I make it bigger or smaller? Brackets. And what color am I painting with? And which is selected, him or the mask? The mask. Very good. So I'm going to get picky. And I'm going to, I like to just kind of nibble away at the edges rather than go, wah, 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 right? It gives me better results. And I like to use a small brush because I'm a perfectionist. And remember that if you go too far, you can always bring it back. There, I went too far. Okay, this area, need to get rid of that. And this area. So as I go down closer and closer to where his fingers are, I'm going to use a smaller and smaller brush. And I am doing this, guys, really fast. So I'm not being as much of a perfectionist as I normally would be. There, that is no good. There, we're going to fix it. So undo, Command Z is my best friend. Okay, so as you can see, I'm not doing a super awesome job because I'm, on a time limit as far as people being able to, I would probably spend an hour going over every single pixel and making sure I had everything just right. So this is my fast masking job on Ryan's hand here. But there's some stuff that just won't do, and I have to get rid of it. There. Okay, now let's look at his hair, and let's look at all the other edges. And we do have that green spill, so we're going to get rid of that. We already know how to do that. Hair looks decent. This we must get rid of. So I'm painting with black, painting with the mask. Okay, so now let's select him. So I'm doing, what am I doing to get back to, what key command am I using to get him back in full on the screen? Command 0. Okay. Okay, so now we have the marching ants and we need to select the we have him, we want everything but him, right? Okay, so first we are going to move that selection, we're going to modify it, right? Contract by 2 pixels. Let's look at that, see if it's what we want. Yep. We actually have a little bit more green spill on this. I might contract it more. So I'm going to select, modify, contract again. This time I'm going to contract it by 1 pixel. There, I think that's better. Now we have to select everything but Ryan. So we're going to do select, inverse, very good. And we have the mask selected and we're going to do what to fill with black? Option delete, very good. All right, so let's take this version of Ryan. There. And I'm just going to take him and drag him into the landscape. And it is giving me this message, hey, are you sure you want to convert this color space? We're not covering color space in this picture. We will, but in this lesson we're not. Okay, now I need to do what? I need to make him into a smart object. Very good. So layer, smart object, convert to smart object. Now in this one, if I hit Command T, okay, so one thing to remember is just like in Illustrator, Shift constrains. So I am not going to alter the proportions of his body. I want them to remain the same. I can flip him horizontally though. So we have him in 3 different positions. Now should I push him forward in the space or back? Let's play with that. So I could have 3 versions of Ryan, kind of 1, 2, 3 in this picture space. Do we like that, or do we want a bigger version of Ryan here? I don't think it makes any sense to have a bigger version of him, do you? Okay, let's make we could make multiples of Ryan actually playing that are sized just enough. We can take this one and I can option drag a copy. Command T. So as you can see, you can get a lot of multiple me's in pretty quickly. Now I'm going to save this. I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to upload this composite along with a couple more images of Ryan, and I want you guys to play with masking, okay? So I want you to cut out and add to and create your own image of Ryan in this landscape. You could also change the landscape out if you want. Okay, so I'm going to save, and you guys can take a quick break if you want, and I'm going to upload it to D2L. So that will take me a minute. Wow, I'm on 6% battery. Okay, so I'm gonna put it in news. I'm gonna make a new news item. Grind.psd. All right, I'm going to plug this baby in, and then we'll get this in